When you edit your videos, do you put them on a hard drive and edit off of said hard drive? Well, if you do, buddy boy, pal, you're doing it wrong. And today, we're gonna fix that. So I have quite a few hard drives, and I'll get to what I use them all for in a minute. I used to use my 2TB hard drive for video editing. I would put all my footage onto the hard drive once I'd filmed. I'd put it into a folder. I would open up a project and import the footage from my hard drive and work off of said hard drive. And that's how I'd done things for years. But eventually, after watching a few editing tutorials, I thought to myself, is my computer running a little slow? Like, why is my editing buffering? Why is it not loading as quickly as theirs is? And I realized after doing a bit of digging, a bit of investigating, that it's not actually my computer, because, you know, even though I have a couple-year-old MacBook, it should still run pretty fast. It was the hard drive that I was editing off of. You see, what I should have been using was a solid-state drive. Now, there are a ton of reasons why a solid-state drive is better than a hard disk drive. The main two are size and durability. If you look at these just on face value, the SSD is clearly smaller. It's made of metal as well, so it's a bit more hardier than the bigger hard drive, which is made of plastic. It's not quite as thick and hardened. And you see, when you turn on an HDD, you hear this noise. But when you turn on an SSD, you hear nothing, nada, zip. And why is that? What's going on? Well, that sound that you hear when you turn on an HDD, that's the sound of the drives, the hard disk drives, spinning around and like scanning that data and actually physically moving around and looking at the data that you have on the drive. It's a moving part, and as you should know, any piece of technology that involves moving parts is going to drastically reduce how long that piece of technology can last. They say that the average lifespan of a hard drive is about 3 to 5 years. And to be quite honest, if you're using a hard drive after 5 years without a backup, you are constantly at risk of just losing everything. I say that as someone who has lost everything from a hard drive, and it sucks. I had to pay over $1,000 to get less than half of my entire drive back. It was just a nightmare. It was stressful. It was a complete bitch. Do not go about your business without backing up your damn hard drive. Oh my God. However, SSDs, on the other hand, have an average lifespan of, oh, just say about 100 years. What? That is so much better than a hard disk drive, and so much more ideal for someone like a video editor or like anyone storing a substantial amount of footage, data, anything else, because it's not going to be at risk. Of course, you still want to back it up, but it's nice to know that that drive is probably going to last a lot longer. How, you may ask? Well, it's a mixture of the metal encasing. There's no moving parts. There's no spinning discs or anything. It's I don't know quite how to explain it, but it's a much different way to read and write data on that little hard drive. Or should I say, solid state disk drive. And look, partly because of its metal encasing and, again, the lack of moving parts, it just means that overall it's going to be able to take more hits and bumps and drops and falling into your SpaghettiOs. Like, it's a more durable physical device as well. And that really is why people argue for SSDs, because of just how much more secure and how much more reliable they are to use. But quite frankly, what was a bigger selling point to me was not necessarily the reliability of those drives, but the speed. SSDs are a lot faster than hard drives. Samsung claims them to be about 5 times faster. That's probably an exaggeration. I wouldn't claim my experience to be exactly 5 times faster as my hard drive experience. But I'll tell you in my experience that SSDs have absolutely transferred data a lot quicker than hard drives. Editing on them is just so much quicker and speedier than hard drives. When you're editing, it brings up the footage quicker. The playback is more smooth, just makes it the experience more pleasant. So if this is the case, SSDs are smaller, they're faster, they're more durable, then I hear you say, why does everybody not have these little contraptions, these SSDs? Why are they not in the hands of every dang consumer in the world? The price. They are much more expensive. Oh man. So you can get a 2TB hard drive for about $100. I got mine for $80, it was on discount. But to get a 2TB SSD, at least a good one, will put you back $1,000. Considering they are 10 times as expensive as hard drives, they haven't really caught on yet. I bought a 250 gigabyte SSD, and I bought it for about $180. Quite frankly, I do think I've gotten my money's worth out of it. I use it all the time. I rarely use my hard drive, and what that means, just by nature, my hard drive is going to last that much longer, because instead of plugging it in and having that disk spinning for like hours at a time while I'm editing, I only plug it in once every like month, barely even that, to back up my SSD onto the hard drive, and then back up the hard drive data onto another backup hard drive. And it's all tons of backups, but you need it because I'm not spending $1,000 again. Oh my goodness. Yeah, look, specifically with editing, my editing workflow has become a lot quicker, especially with editing multiple clips on top of each other. That's something particularly that the hard drive finds difficult and starts to stutter with, whereas the SSD handles it a lot better. It really does speed up my workflow, which in turn means I just use the hard drive less, which means my turnaround is quicker than it was before using the SSD. If you want to replicate my hard drive setup, all the hard drives I had, mine is a bit of an overkill. I probably have more than the average consumer. Here we go. I have one 250 gigabyte SSD, which I use for editing, my 2 terabyte hard drive, which I use for storing my footage, my 2 terabyte backup of the first 2 terabyte drive, my 500 gigabyte drive for backing up my laptop's data, and a spare 2 terabyte drive when the first two fill up, and at that point I'll buy another one to use to back up this one. Now just remember, and I can't stress this enough, it is really important to back up your data. I know it sounds like, wow, I have to buy two $80 drives or $200 drives. It can be a bit daunting, but it really, really is worth it, and you're gonna thank your lucky stars so much when you're faced with paying $1,000 and then you're like, oh no, it's okay, I spent $100 to back up my footage so I don't need to worry about my hard drive crashing. But lastly, what if you can't afford an SSD? You wanna edit faster than you do on a hard drive, but you can't afford to buy an SSD. Well, there are a few alternatives. Editing on your laptop or your computer's actual built-in storage is usually gonna be faster than an external hard drive. Oftentimes, most modern laptops have SSD storage or flash storage, and that's going to be a lot faster anyway than using a hard drive. So if you put the footage onto your desktop, create a project folder on your desktop and edit off of that, that's going to be faster. Even your SD card is an example of flash storage, which is still pretty fast and definitely going to be faster than your hard disk drive. So if you have enough space on your SD card, you can just create the project folder on your SD card and edit right off of there. That in itself is going to be quicker than a hard disk drive. That would be if you don't have enough space on the desktop of your laptop. But if you don't, and you need to clear up some space on your laptop, at least for a Mac, OmniDisk Sweeper is a great app that I use. It really helps to find out exactly what is taking up space on your laptop and just delete that. On a PC, well, I can't help you there, but I'm pretty sure you should be able to Google it and find out how to, clear up your storage and make space for your video making and whatnot. Well, okay, there you have it. How to speed up your editing by ditching that, well, not ditching, but not editing off of a hard disk drive, and why it's just dang impractical and slower than a beautiful SSD. It's worth it, I'll say that. So get on it. Thank you very much for sticking around till the end. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe, like, check out all these links around. Thanks for popping around. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.